Welcome to the Midlife Men podcast with me, Philip Briscoe. Today, my guest is Jack Clifford, who at 47 was told he had a fully blocked widowmaker artery and needed emergency triple bypass surgery, a moment that forced him to confront not just his own heart health, but his own mortality. And he's going to tell us all about that today. So welcome to you, Jack.
Thanks, Phil. Appreciate you having me.
So, Jack, take us back to that time when you were 47. You were told you had this fully blocked widowmaker artery. What went through your mind?
Yeah, and it wasn't just the widowmaker. It was all the three major ones. They were all gunked up completely. It was shocking. I mean, the first thing that went through my mind was I'm 47. Like, I'm, in my eyes, in good health. I'm a young guy, been a retired military guy for a minute, but always kind of been in reasonably good shape. And so kind of like, how is this possible? Just that level of shock like this, there was not warning sign. I mean, there was warning signs in the months preceding because I did not have a heart attack. I had very severe and progressive angina that came on kind of all of a sudden and then got significantly worse over those preceding just couple of months. But yeah, like, how is it possible? I'm 47, I have some genetic history, but not in their 40s, not in their 50s. Like, yeah, maybe in their 60s, but not in their early 60s even.
So what were the physiologically? What were the symptoms you were getting? You mentioned angina. I mean, what does that feel like to people that don't know?
So, I mean, that's a great question because I had no familiarity with it, right? Like, I think there's a common wondering of what a heart attack feels like because, you get all these descriptions and you're supposed to kind of be on the lookout for it, and yet when you feel it, I think a lot of people are worried it's the end and they're done. And so you just don't even know how to pass it on to anybody else. So it feels sort of very mildly like what maybe you would imagine a heart attack feels like. It's pain in your chest. Not that you hear these other presentations like, down your arm or nausea or something, very specific to a given area, at least for me. And I think that's fairly common. I don't want to say that people don't feel angina somewhat differently, but that's pretty typical. In my case, it was exercise induced, and that's what most people, I think, are going to feel if they're really listening to their body. Now, I think that part is key. Are you really listening to your body? Because in my case, I had taken good care of myself ish, like in my 20s, in my 30s, I had somewhat of a fitness routine. I'd run a marathon, a couple of halves, a bunch of 10Ks, 5Ks. And then I just sort of stopped taking care of myself. That was predominantly because I was really focused on helping my wife. She had a traumatic brain injury that was like, couldn't walk or talk for several years. I just sort of lost myself in trying to help her. And fortunately, she did get a lot better. But that took a long time. Anyhow, so we had moved to Florida, which is weather change by the beach. She was doing better, and I was like, I should probably start taking care of myself. Like, the beach was calling me to go for a run, so that's what I did. I went to the beach. I was like, I've been a runner. I'm gonna go run. Haven't been running in a while, but it's still part of my sense of myself. Anyhow, so just little back to running. You're like if you haven't run in a while, you're like, the stride is different. It's not walking, it's running. It's like very different, something you haven't done in a long time. Anyhow, just a couple of minutes into it, I start getting this weird pain. I kid myself at the time and say, oh, I just pulled a muscle. Like, none of this makes sense in retrospect. Anyhow, so I stop. It goes away, start again, it comes back. And then, try that again a couple days later, same thing, rinse and repeat. Stop even trying at that point. Just, in complete denial, but not gonna, it hurts. Anyways, and then, over the next couple of months, I started getting short of breath just walking. and, had that pain, but to a lesser degree and more of a shortness of breath feeling. And, um, you know, like, did not know what any of this was. The only reason that I went to the hospital and like the whole thing became emergent and, kind of resulted in this book is, um, I I've been a biohacker now since 2008, like master level. We've done my wife and I have done a lot of biohacking. That's because doctors have not had all the answers, and so we had to find them for a wide variety of things for her.
Just define biohacking for people that don't know.
Yeah, I like to call it the art and science of aging gracefully, but there are other definitions. But basically, you're using inputs, be it modifying lifestyles, be it putting substances in your body, to you know to slow down the aging process. Uh, so I was very familiar with trying things and seeing their effects because I was doing it just because it was beneficial to my wife, and so I was like, why not for me? This, that, or the other thing. We tried a lot of stuff.
So you go to the hospital. They tell you need an emergency triple bypass. What do you think to that? I mean, what's going on mentally more than anything? Because you're only 47.
I know, and I'll answer that, but I just want to clarify that I didn't have a heart attack, and it's kind of an important point because why would you go to the hospital if you didn't? Well, in my case, my wife bought me for Christmas in 2020 a chili pad. This is a biohacking device that makes your bed cold. Cranked that thing down to 55, jumped in bed. I was all like proud of myself, and I woke up in like intense pain. 4 a.m. The pain woke me up, and that was because I had gotten cold-induced angina, which is basically exercise-induced angina because I put a strain on my heart while sleeping. Felt exactly like anybody would imagine the big one would feel, quote unquote. Rushed to the hospital. I did not have a heart attack. EKG was normal. My labs were normal. But they put me on a stress test. This is a nuclear stress test. It's a test where they put some dye in you. They see where the blood is flowing, and then they put you on a treadmill and they see how your heart responds to exercise. Failed that thing miserably, like one of the worst they had ever seen. Okay, so to answer your question, yeah, I'm in the hospital. Like now it's getting real. I'm in for and I felt pretty okay when I got there, but they're treating me like it's emergency and, but it was a Friday, so I had all weekend to sit there and think about what they were planning on doing with me. And I had a pretty good sense of it. They were going to, on Monday, they were going to go do I like to say this. If you see these scars men have here, that's a bypass surgery. Yeah. So, that was kind of that moment, 47, feeling like I was facing the end of my life, going from 0 to 60. Like,
Yeah, I can see that. 47, you kind of past the midpoint, but not that far past it.
yeah, I didn't feel like I was that much.
So what happened next then? So you're in the hospital for the weekend. You're expecting to have surgery on the Monday. So what happened next?
Yeah, so I had all weekend to think about it. It was during COVID, so I was alone. Had my phone. Took a crash course on heart disease. Again, I felt pretty fine, hooked up to all these machines, but I didn't think I needed them for anything. I was just kind of lying there all weekend for no particular reason in mind. And my mom had had a bypass 5 years earlier, and I do not think that this gets nearly enough recognition, but her cognition declined significantly after that bypass surgery to the point where she's now in memory care. But it began the 5 years earlier, that cognitive decline. It is real noticeable. She went from being this vibrant woman who did all these things and under own will, published 50 books and just did all kinds of stuff. And then all of a sudden there was this very quick decline. Anyhow, and that's a phenomenon that's pretty common with bypass surgery that doesn't get a lot of a conversation. But I was very concerned about that. I wasn't just going to go get bypass surgery. If we're going down that road, there better be no other option. And yet, in my case, the doctor was like, yeah, 50-50 on the stents. And you could tell it wasn't 50-50. Like, I read the report on the stress test, and I was, I knew enough to know that that wasn't going to be likely my outcome. And then the worst part about that to me is you're signing consent forms to say that you're getting a heart cath with the expectation you're going to wake up having a stent, which is one thing, and then you actually wake up having had bypass surgery, which is a whole other thing, in terms of recovery and your sense of yourself. I mean, people should, before they get bypass surgery, really go on Facebook, go to some groups, read some stories, get familiar with what that looks like on the back end. Because sure, a lot of people come out just mostly fine, I guess, but that's not everybody's story.
So some people listening to this would think, well, hey, if I've been told I've got a blocked artery and I need bypass surgery, why wouldn't I get it? Because, isn't that life or death? If I don't have it, am I just going to die?
That's not what the studies say. Sure, if you have so much heart muscle at risk that, revascularizing that area in a moment is the difference between your heart being able to pump blood into your body or not. And that's going to be, where the heart attack is and what degree, of heart muscle isn't getting the blood it needs. But your body has all kinds of compensatory mechanisms to at least, get by. Because, like, take my case. I wasn't just 100%, I'd been 100% blocked in my widowmaker for some period of time. It wasn't, the day before it just happened. The guys that really need to be concerned is the ones that have 50% blockages, and then they throw up a clot, and the plaque bursts, and then all of a sudden their body has no time to adjust from getting at least 50% throughput, and then all of a sudden they have none in one of these major arteries. That wasn't my case. I was slowly plaquing up to the point where my body, had, started to turn those compensatory mechanisms on. So I was functional. But there's going to be variance to that. It just depends on, it's very individualized. But if they're recommending bypass surgery and you're walking around and you're able to get by, like, really, you got time to think about it. Like, you should think about it.
So you made the decision then not to go ahead with the bypass surgery.
Yeah.
You considered all those options. I guess, your fear about perhaps what happened to your mother might happen to you, and you're still relatively young. So what happened? You walked out of the hospital, and then, what did you, you've talked about the kind of...
So first of all, doc does the staff cardiologist, and I got second opinions, and I did all my due diligence in the hospital. The guy, I'm like, I'm leaving, and I said, but I'm new here. I don't have a cardiologist. Can I had never had a cardiologist, but now I probably needed one. Can I come see you next week? He goes, if you live that long. They walked right out the door. And I'm like, oh wow, this is getting really serious if it wasn't before. And yeah, but I still left. And so yeah, at that point I felt like absolute dog shit. Like, just, I mean, because I think it's a little bit in your head at that point, right? Like anything here that feels like anything is all of a sudden the big one. And then, it gets in your head and you're just like, psychologically it does a lot of damage, just even knowing that that's the situation you're in. So I looked at all these alternatives, changing my diet, and I ate pretty well. I mean, I was on keto, but I wasn't doing probably the cleanest version of keto, and I could make some adjustments there. I went on a 3-day fast, like, right away. I started following the Esselstyn diet, which isn't a diet for me. I just got really fat. And I went and got chelation, which is this other kind of thing that pulls, like, heavy metals out of your body. And that might be effective. I mean, I think there's a lot of good evidence, and a lot of people talk positively about it. It just wasn't available to me. Like, there was nowhere I could really go to do it. I had to drive really far, and it was really expensive, and didn't seem like it was going to work particularly well or fast. But I took a crash course, like, over the next weeks and months. But the thing that I knew about was EECP, and I only knew about it because I had listened to a Ben Greenfield podcast. Is one of the original, biohacking podcaster guys, and he had interviewed this Dr. Thomas Cowan about a book he wrote called Cosmic Heart, Sacred Heart, and it just mentioned EECP very briefly. EECP is external counterpulsation. I know we're going to talk about it more in a minute, but that's the therapy that I did end up using that was a game changer. And So, I knew there was modalities out there, right? Like, I knew enough to know that I had at least a little bit of time. I ended up getting, even more scared because I did have the heart cath, which I hadn't had in the hospital. I had it later on and, found out, quantified these blockages, right? Like, and my wife's in tears and so it's not like.
So what's driving you here? Is it bravery? Is it, instinct, fear? What made you decide to fix yourself, I guess?
I gotta say the biggest like factor outside of like seeing what happened to my mom and not wanting that to happen to me was my wife has dealt with cancer. She's dealt with a really bad autoimmune disease called scleroderma. She dealt with the TBI I mentioned earlier, and a few other things along the road. And I'd seen so many of these alternative things work for her once we figured out the right sort of ingredients, secret sauce, if you will. Um, and so, and it was working with some doctors, but the right doctors, the open-minded ones that really had figured things out. It wasn't the ones you're just going to happen to stumble upon. Um, anyways, and so now it was kind of my turn in the hot seat, and I felt like if I went down the traditional path without trying something else first, kind of honestly, I felt like a fake. Like, I needed to try. My wife had done it, and I didn't even ever think I'd be in this situation, but here I am. So, you know, that was really what was motivating me.
And in terms of your kind of mental outlook, I guess that was supporting your decision. You were thinking, right, I'm not going to be beaten. I mean, did you find yourself feeling depressed and you know
I was
win?
terrified. I was sad. I was I was desperate. It was a whole bunch of things. Like, you know.
So tell us about EECP then. Tell us more about that.
Sure. Okay. So EECP, it stands for Enhanced External Counterpulsation. It is a machine that you lie on, and you have cuffs wrapping around your calves, your thighs, and your hips, um, through your buttocks. So you're fully wrapped up in this like spacesuit from the waist down. It feels like, and there's air bladders in these cuffs, and then you have a 3-lead EKG on you, and the machine inflates in between heartbeats, and then it just pushes air, which then pushes blood from your lower body up to your upper body, and then it routes back down again. So the machine's going like this in between heartbeats, and um, it, it's pretty much the same thing as cardiovascular exercise while you're lying comfortably in a bed, and the machine is pulsing to the beat of your own heart. So it's kind of a rhythmic, hypnotic sort of thing in a way. Um, but the pressure is the differential, right? It starts at 1.3 pounds per square inch of pressure, which kind of feels like a gentle massage, and it goes up to 6, which feels like the opposite of that. Um, and it 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 it's just cardiovascular exercise at the end of the day, but it's exercise that you couldn't do on your own. It doesn't matter if I was back when I could run marathons or whatever. Like you can't simulate it on your own. And it's just putting your body through this level of cardiovascular exercise that doesn't put a strain on your body, right? Um, I mean, it can make you tired to a degree. I'm not saying there's no, fatigue factor, or whatever. It's a long hour just lying there. You be kind of bored, but um, the output of that is your body has to adapt, right? Our bodies adapt, our minds adapt when we change our environments. If we do it to the right degree, you know, we have time to catch up, right? And in this case, you're changing the environment of your cardiovascular system intensely in a treatment session, and then those compound over each other after multiple sessions, and you just grow vasculature. And I'm a pretty veiny dude now, like and I wasn't before. Like there's all these, little ones you're not going to see that are totally enhancing my physiology because I have optimal blood flow to my brain, to my pelvic area, to my kidneys, to my, certainly to my heart, like, everywhere. Um, and, you know, I, I just sort of stumbled on this amazing thing that, sure, and it treated my heart, but boy, it treated a hell of a lot more than my heart. Like, you know, it's it's the most systemic therapy that there is out there, and it's natural. I mean, it's just, your body making an adaptation to its environment.
And how adopted is it? You know,
Oh,
in the
it's
US.
this is a huge problem. So I just released my book. It's at eecpbook.com. And I kind of go over it all, but I'm tackling my story, but also this systemic problem. They got 5,000 access points in China. We got 150 in the US. I think in Australia I've found one. I think there's also one in like New Zealand possibly, but and there probably is more than one in Australia, but like they don't, a little bit of searching I did, you can't, they don't just pop up. So I also started this site called eecplocator.com, at least for the US, and I plan on bringing it to to Europe and to Australia. Just to show people where their access points are, right? It's just a free site available for people to make sure they know where they could get this if they wanted to. Um, and it it's just shameful. Like it's this so hard to get, and you got to do it. Like a normal protocol is 35 treatment hours. So like in my case, I called around like everywhere I could find. And first problem, they all want to wait till you've had bypass and you've had stents, and like they have no other answers for you, and then they'll let you do it, which just seems completely counterintuitive to me. That was the first problem. And then the second problem is like in the whole state of Florida, there's like 15 providers. None of them were close to me. And so the only one I could find that would treat me was 3 hours away. Had to drive, stay in a hotel. He made me do the heart cath that I mentioned, right? Fortunately, at a hospital that does not do bypass surgery, because otherwise they would have done that to me. That was standard of care. That's what they would have done. They were morally obligated to cut my chest open and bypass me, and that's not what I wanted. But they didn't do it there, so they woke me up from anesthesia and told me how bad off I was, and my wife is crying, and I'm like, well, I'm going over to see the doc that ordered this because he's gonna give me ECP, and he did.
So how just explain to me how so if you have got blockages in your arteries and this EECP technique is pumping air which pumps blood around your body, how does that manage the fact you have arteries, blocked arteries in the first place? Do you have to manage that separately? I mean, how do you clear those arteries?
You don't. You don't. I'm still 100% blocked. One of the major fears I have is somebody does any kind of imaging on me, and they're like, "Oh my God, this guy's gonna die," and yet you're not gonna see these small ones because they can't image those, right? The ones I've grown, yeah, you can image that, I suppose, but for the most part, they're just gonna look at these major ones and see that they're blocked.
How do you go about actually unblocking your arteries? Is that possible?
So yeah, to a degree, you can. There's definitely some good supplements to consider. Niacin is absolutely one of them. There's a specially formulated uh, type of it's a polysaccharide. It might not be, but it's called Plaque X, and that is actually really really helpful. It's a type of choline. That's what it is. It comes in an IV form and an oral form. I used the IV form. I took 40 IV treatments of that, and that was really helpful to get rid of plaquing that you already have. But there's that's only going to be in areas where you're not like mostly blocked or completely blocked. Um, and then you've got to change your lifestyle. I mean, fish oil is another important one. I mean, I could go on and on with the supplement recommendations. But in Australia, there's a thing called Cabodex, which is a particularly kind of formulated cyclodextrin, which is a common food additive that can also help take plaque out of the body. The guy, Kyle, some or other in Australia, invented it. Actually, it's a pretty neat story. Um, anyhow, but yeah, um, that's part of the problem. Like, you need to keep up with the plaquing because certain people have tendencies for plaquing, right? Like, and you should know what some of your lab values are. Like, there's this really important one called lipoprotein little a, and that's kind of a bit of a genetic marker that well, they say it's a genetic marker because if you're high in it, they think you're always going to be high, and so they just use it as a, well, this is a likelihood that this is going to be in your future that you're going to have these kinds of problems. I was able to bring mine down to into the normal range, but a lot of people don't think you can.
Let me ask you about because there's often a bit of a stigma around, I guess, using alternative medicine or not mainstream medicine. You've done. Do you feel you're having to? Do you ever feel you've had to defend your choices?
Yeah, especially because I want to promote this, right? And I want to promote it because honestly, like EECP made me feel so good, and it's so easy to do, and it's not that expensive that um I just kind of almost feel a moral obligation to tell the world, because no one else is doing it, and there's so many people that are suffering. And like my mom didn't have to be in the situation she was in, especially if she'd been proactive and had treatment before she started having heart problems, or as they were coming on. And my dad passed of dementia. Well, EECP was recently studied in a really good study in the US, like to basically cure dementia. Like you could read the study. It's a really good, like multi-center placebo arm study that says that the dementia patients all got better and they're supposed to get worse. It was like a year-long study. They all got better. Go figure. Um, you know, like like it works for so many things. And you're talking to men. Let's talk about erectile dysfunction. Philip made my penis an inch and a half bigger. That's no joke. Like, ask my wife. Um, like it completely fixes erectile dysfunction, but to a degree that is not like anything else. It's not like it gets well enough for you to perform. It's just you know like a whole other thing.
And this is by pumping air or air pumping blood around your body and just improving your whole circulation.
Well, yeah, keep in mind I have 700 hours on this machine now, right? So the standard protocol is 35 hours, but when you get from, like 35 hours is good, well, it comes to turn out that more is better, just like exercise to a degree, in the right dose at the right time and everything. You keep exercising, you get more fit, right? Same principle at play. So why stop at 35?
So you sound like, so I think you're 52 now, is that right? So, here you are, 5 years on, uh, feeling really fit, feeling better. You've got lots of benefits. Um, I'm guessing you're very pleased that you took this approach as opposed to going down the surgery route.
And you know what? To the men out there, I'd say like it changed my sense of myself, Phil. Like honestly, like I don't know if my brain was dying because I've definitely got some dementia and cognitive decline in my, hereditary, um, and but it just like turned the lights back on. I went from my whole life, Phil. I'd needed, 8 9 hours of sleep a night, like more on the longer end of what most people need. I I got up at 2:30 this morning like I do every morning, just rearing ready to go. Like you know, it's completely changed just my whole like daily pattern and rhythm, my sense of myself as a man, um, and like this is a little esoteric, but I'll say it like it's given me the ability to like observe myself. Like my brain has changed to the point now where like I just have a completely different sense of myself. I almost like I get that when I was 47, I had a story from birth to 47, and that was Jack, that version of Jack. From 47 to today, there's been this weird transitional rebirth of my sense of myself. It's kind of fairly mature now. It hasn't been a slow thing. It's been a pretty fast thing, but there were stages. Um, and 52-year-old Jack kind of feels 5 years old in a way. I don't quite know how to say that any
Do
other
you
way,
feel?
but
Do you think that's because you were facing, your mortality? You were faced with.
that was for sure a factor. But I honestly think the fact that I showed you this, is a much bigger factor. Like I think just things have changed inside my physiology because I have optimal blood flow everywhere. And I mean that's my sense of it. Like how else do you explain somebody going from, getting up like just barely in time to get to work on time and, sometimes not even that to the guy that gets up at 2:30 in the morning because his body wakes him up and he's like, okay, let's get stuff done. I went for a run, go hop in the sauna, lift weights, do all that stuff. I don't like that wasn't me 5 years ago. That wasn't me 10 years ago.
So what would you say? What would you say to guys listening to this? In the middle years, who are they know they're declining. They know that they're not as fit as they were. They know they're not investing in their body anymore.
Yeah, I think the absolute most important thing is to learn how to listen to your body. I think we as men need to have an ongoing conversation with our body. Let your body talk to you. Really listen to it. It has things to say. That could look like a a, a shoulder injury. Like I don't, like you're like, oh, this hurts, so I'm going to stop working out for a couple of days, and then all of a sudden you don't have um, that habit of working out, right? And then pretty soon it's 2 weeks and 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and your shoulder's fine, but you lost the habit of working out. I think that's pretty common. Even now, I can still fall into that trap. The way around that is to find something else to do that doesn't affect your shoulder and to keep that pattern and that rhythm going. I think we as men are generally speaking pretty habitual creatures. If we keep that routine going, it self-sustains. But the moment you lose it, and you find out you spent 2 weeks on the couch, you're just pissed off at yourself. Like, there you are.
And I guess lifestyle, the way that we live our lives these days, which is different to even 50 years ago, I guess.
Yeah, so different. So different.
Presumably that, in your opinion, has a big impact then on our general physiology and our mental health and everything else.
Yeah, we don't have to work for things the way we used to, physical labor. I mean, some people do, I don't have one of those jobs. I don't know if you do, but most people, I don't know if you have do you ever watch that movie Office Space? It's kind of an oldie. Uh, Anyways, this guy at the end, he spends the whole movie working in an office, and then they end up burning the office down, and then they show him on a construction site with a big smile on his face. It's just like I don't know that I really want to do that all day long for a living, but the fact that you could just go out and be you know a man working with your hands feels, there's something innately good about that, and I think we're wired for that, and yet most of us don't end up doing. That's not how we spend our days.
So your book, tell us about your book. Where do people find your book and find out more about EECP?
Yeah, thanks. So I just released it at eecpbook.com, and it's called EECP, the most underutilized therapy in medicine. And there's a lot of physicians, when they hear that title, like, you know what, you're right. Like, it is. Because, some of these physicians I know, they've been doing this for a while. But, few and far between, but still. Anyhow, but the book is just basically, my story, first part, and then the story of kind of how it's used differently in different countries. Like I mentioned, in China, also in India and in Malaysia, there's a lot of other countries where it's used because of the way their medical systems are set up and what the incentives are and such. And then it goes into the technology, exactly, the biology at play, and then how one can find it. That's mostly for a U.S. market, but like I'd love to have a conversation with anybody. I don't care where they are. If they want to talk about it, if they want to know how they can get it, just call me. I'll talk about this all day long. And then it talks about kind of the future and builds a case for why we should be, advocating for this. It's FDA approved. It's been reimbursed for Medicare for 30 years. And lots of other insurances pay for it, but they only pay for it when you're like so bad off they got nothing else to offer you. Again, why is that? It's been studied in long COVID. It's been studied in dementia. It's been studied in kidney dysfunction. It's been studied in erectile dysfunction. I could go on and on.
So the key is to get in there early then. Don't wait. I guess what you're saying is we shouldn't have to wait until you're at a critical stage.
No, like why wouldn't we? I think they should have these at every gym. There's so many people that don't like to run, They just I'll never do that, for whatever reason. Let's get you on this machine. You don't have to run. It's so comfortable. and you'll be doing the same thing physiologically. You get those same cardiovascular benefits.
I mean, this sounds like the perfect solution, right? Because you can just lie down and put your body in this suit and
And
just lay
you're
back.
doing more. You're doing more than running. More than you ever could do if you were to actually go for a run. I mean, go in the sauna to sweat something out because you need to sweat still too. But yeah, I totally think that's the case.
And can you buy these for your home? I mean, can you buy them privately? Or I mean, how expensive is a suit?
They're not cheap. They're probably the price of like a decent used car. Yeah. But if somebody's interested, let me know. I've got relationships with manufacturers. I'd be happy to put people in touch with people. But yeah, I have 7. I started buying them, but I kind of got addicted to it. But because my greatest fear was losing my machine. Like honestly, I was like, if this thing breaks, they're hard to find parts for. So I was like, oh my god. So I started buying them, and now I'm helping other people out. But
got 7. Brilliant. Well, look, Jack, it's been great talking to you. Thank you for your insights. Really something to think about, actually, as an alternative to, I think often, people don't question things that they're told to do, especially around their health. So it's really interesting to get your view on that. And, how you're, I guess you're living embodiment of someone that refused the surgery, but is feeling better than they have done for a long time.
Yeah, I feel a bit like heart attack proof, and watch, I'll die of a heart attack tomorrow. I don't know, I certainly don't know that it won't happen, but I feel like I've done as much to put myself in a position where I don't have to worry about that. And even one quick comment just about the psychology of this, right? Like we all, if we're either ignoring it or we're fearing it, let's be proactive. Let's put ourselves in the position where we really can say, we've done something about this, and so it doesn't have to be such a concern.
Great. Well, Jack, thank you. Thanks very much.
Absolutely, Phil. Great. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Midlife Men podcast with me, Philip Briscoe. If you want to find out more about EECP, Jack, or his book, then visit his website, eecpbook.com. To help raise the profile of the podcast, it really helps if you can please review and follow the show on your podcast platform. And please share it with your networks and people you think might benefit from listening to it. If you have a story to share, then do contact me through the website mid-lifemen.com.